Hey, Nate, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Get in Market. I said that weird. Welcome to
Get in
to
market.
Market.
Get in
Welcome
market.
to Get in Market, where your job's real and your role's negotiable. We are in the South, so maybe we should do that as a part of our overall, like that's
We
just how we
should
talk about it.
advertise at tractor pulls.
Have you ever been to a tractor pull?
I have not. I've seen billboards for them, but I've never gone.
They're super cool.
Are they?
Yeah, for a while we would do like surprise dates, where we would just put on the calendar, hey, we're busy that day. And so we went to a tractor pull on a surprise date. I didn't really know what was going on. It was a very Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin.
Oh yeah. So
Oh,
it was a chicken feed tractor pull combination. And so you show up and there's a bunch of people that very much seem like they like legit drove off the farm, did their chores in their work truck, got to the tractor pull, competed, and then they're like, I gotta go. We gotta go milk the cows. And I'm like, left. It was awesome.
one thing I feel like people in the South and people in the Midwest don't seem to kind of acknowledge is how similar they are
Oh yeah.
culturally. Like outside of kind of like whatever bigger cities you want to describe in like the Midwest, like it is pretty similar, like kind of rural territory,
Yeah.
with very similar politics and kind of like cultural things.
That part is true. I very much feel not necessarily Minnesota nice, like at that kind of reputation, but just like similar vibes, similar everything. It's the same. So we could talk about Wisconsin for a while and the Midwest for a while. It's now we're here getting to market where your job is real and your role is negotiable. We talk about building product, what it takes to build product in this software world. My name is John. If you haven't been listening for a while, I'm a product manager and been a product manager for a little while. You are.
I'm Nate, director of product marketing at the same org that you're at. Although you are technically a vice president, that's why I always have to call you Vice President Stan whenever you're in the room.
Yep.
But
If you could stand up actually when you say it too, please. Thank you. Oh, you are standing. Oh, yeah. One of the things that you do regularly is just send me different random clips and different stuff that's rolling around in your head. You sent me one this week. Tell me about it.
you know what? Let's save that for a future episode. Let's talk instead about something that you sent me, which was Gartner's stock has dipped. It's been all over the news, and lots of folks on LinkedIn have opinions on it. It's dropped pretty precipitously, and a lot of that seems to be tied to kind of views around its value in the AI world. What are your thoughts on it?
It was like 50%, right? Like 50 or something like that over the last 12.
It's been a big drop. Let me
It's a
pull up
lot.
the number here.
While you're looking for it, there's a lot of research firms that I've talked to and worked with and like been super helpful, but just this idea of we hold the knowledge and we know and we'll get you access to it. If that is the core value that they're providing, then not anymore. All that stuff is there and being able to aggregate it and say, what do I do about it? That's what AI is doing for everybody. The hard part is like, we don't know if it's accurate still, right? Like the hallucinations and all that sort of thing. So maybe Gartner's trying to cling to some of those or just like the other research firms.
So let me give you my alt on that. Well, okay. So in January it was at 489. It's currently today sitting at 244. So a steep drop.
That's a lot.
Gartner still has a value, and I think the value in Gartner is it's a defensible resource to
True.
refer to and make decisions based off of, in much the same way that I think whatever you want to say about the McKinsey's, the Big Four, is they've established like a level of trust and credibility. They are defensible to boards to use to justify changes in strategy, and that's still a real value. Like I don't know how many folks would be willing to, even in just like conversations with their leadership, stake a view solely on what AI told you. And so I think my take would be like, yes, they're getting hit pretty hard by the fact that like the information piece and the research component is maybe getting monetized away and folks are being able to use AI. But I think like the ability to say like, hey, this vendor that we're going to spend, $1 million or more on is rated here on a Magic Quadrant or here on a Forrester Wave, like that still carries weight. And I think the ability to say like this analyst who's been in this industry is, supporting this vendor's position, and, outlining sort of where they're going from a future perspective, I think that still has a lot of value for organizations. So it would be interesting to me to see like how well Gartner can kind of continue to like find value in those sort of reputations that they've built and being that kind of like verifiable, defensible resource or thing that you can kind of lean on when you're making those decisions and justifying them.
We'll see what happens. We'll keep talking about it. I have been thinking a little bit about that this week since I sent that to you, not that much. I've been more thinking about, and what I wanted to talk about on this with you is just on paper, like, even kind of our current org on paper, we're a large organization. We'll probably say mid, right? Like just kind of number of employees and that sort of thing. But we operate much more similar to a smaller group in some ways and larger in other ways. What's your experience been, maybe outside of here, but just generally speaking, compare and contrast type of thing? Like, what are we doing differently? What are we doing well based on your experience? Where do you see us at?
Yeah, so for context, we're like a 2,500-ish person org, right? I think somewhere around there.
Yep.
That we're both at. I've been at a place that's like around 20,000 employees, and I've been at places that are sub 100.
Wow.
A couple places have been below 100, and then in between. So,
Well, like,
you know,
in the sub 100, what was that? Where were you kind of in your career wise?
it was earlier. It was earlier, and they were more service oriented, which I think we should also talk about is like the difference between services
Sure.
and kind of product. But there are definite differences between an org that's 50 and an org that's 20,000. Like that would be crazy to say there aren't. I was curious when you brought up this topic. I think the assumption is that the small org is fleeter footed and able to move faster. Do you think that's always true?
Yes. The way that I've talked about it, just in other conversations, is like you can always move faster. Well, it's probably I'm saying it in a weird way. It feels like as the organization scales that you're moving slower, like more red tape, more bureaucratic, more some of that sort of stuff. And some of that might be frustrating, but the level of output and impact you have is that much greater at a larger organization. So yes, I think a small org can always move really, really quick, much more quickly than a larger org. But if you look at, maybe whatever metric you want to do, growth in dollars is, kind of the bookings, that's one. But just like even throughput from an engineering standpoint, engagement with a messaging standpoint, like those changes that you're making are impacting a much more significant audience. And so your throughput is going to be that much larger, right? 40 engineers with 3 product managers will always put out more product than 2 engineers with 1 product manager. Period. I mean, I don't know that you can fight other ways.
I don't know. I was thinking about this too from like another. Well, let's dig into your past for a little
Okay.
bit. Like, so we're 2,500 now.
Yep.
Have you been places bigger and have you been places smaller?
Smaller to bigger, right? Started at a place that was, sub 100, and that grew to about the size we are now. Then at a place of about 1,000. So watch some of that scale as the company grew and built. And really that whole idea of like, hey, it feels like we're moving slower, but actually we're moving more things, more throughput because of the size and scale. That was really kind of observation from that time.
Yeah.
And we were building through that.
So one thing you touched on was like staffing allocations at like a product level, depending on the org size.
Yep.
How do you, where is the, do you have a sweet spot of like number of PMs and POs to a product? Does it depend on like the revenue of the product? How do you gauge, like, is it based on where you're trying to get growth wise? What are you sort of measuring on to properly allocate resources?
Yeah, I've done a product manager in just kind of core product manager responsibilities, like a 2-to-1 type of ratio. Product manager can lead 2 products decently well, without too much. And I think contextually those products have to be similar. And so just being kind of like totally different parts of the world, totally different buyers and users, that becomes really hard. Not that somebody couldn't, but 2-to-1 is doable, even more so when there's a lot of synergy there.
What's the most number of PMs you've had assigned to a single product?
1.
Oh,
Yeah.
whoa.
I'm trying to think through if that's true. So like, software of old where you get suites, right? Like we had a whole suite of stuff that is, I was in a world like that, and we had, 6 or 8 or whatever the number was. I can't even remember how many product managers were on that, but there were core things that they owned. Like you own this and you own that and that sort of thing. But that idea, if you can get the product down, that's probably one of the really strong benefits of what we have here is we are a collection of products that have a lot of synergy for what they're doing for customers together, but we have core products in that, and so it's a one-to-one relationship. Those individuals build that product for that customer base, and the collection is there. And but yeah, one is good. Have you done it with more than one?
I've been at an org where we had, gosh, I can't remember the exact number. It was more than 10 PMs on a single product.
Really?
And we
And
had,
it wasn't a suite of products. It was like one core function, like one product. Really
yeah, one product. I
interesting.
mean, it had like a platform component. So there was,
Sure.
but, and then we had, gosh, I think at one point, 12 folks in product marketing dedicated to it.
Whoa. Whoa.
And so one of the things I was going to ask you about is like segmentation of responsibilities. Like if you had, so we had on the product management side, there were folks that were more like field PMs. They're talking to
Yeah.
customers. They're getting feedback. There were other folks that were more involved in like, what are we doing this sprint? What's getting
Mm.
delivered? And like working with the engineering teams more closely and
Mm-hmm.
communicating that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, folks that are kind of then tied more to like roadmap and what's longer term strategy and how do we talk about that with some of the bigger customers. And then from a product marketing perspective, like you get a lot of freedom to assign people to kind of like more niche things within the scope of a product marketer's role. So you could have someone that's like focused on enablement, and you can have someone that's focused on customer adoption and like what do you want folks like reading and doing when they're in that adoption phase. How do you want to build like net new interest? So what does that message look like? You have folks that are then able to kind of like do more just like, I'm just focused on like building slides for these types of things. And in contrast here at our current jobs, like I've got a product marketing manager who covers 6 products. And they're doing kind of like full sort of pragmatic framework of product marketing for all of those 3 products. And it's like, what do you lose and what do you gain in those 2 different scenarios? And I was thinking too about it when you floated this, is like, what do you as an individual gain by being in one or the other? And like there's advantages to your career in both, I think.
Yeah. I've never even considered what that would be like if you have one product and product managers are owning different parts of the customer journey, which is kind of
Yeah.
a little bit what that is, as opposed to
Yeah.
end to end. I think I've mostly pushed to be in the model that we're in here, and kind of the model that I've only been in, one product manager per thing, because then you've got decision making. Did you have a group product manager there? Like, was that GPM with all of them, kind of, so you still get that buck stops here type thing?
There was like a
Okay.
director who kind of
Okay.
oversaw. There were actually 2 directors who kind of oversaw separate teams within
Hmm.
that function. So I think that
Interesting.
helps. But
Yeah.
it's also interesting because like I remember when I interviewed to join that product marketing team, there were 2 roles open, and one was focused on like a tech domain. So it would be kind of like messaging related to this domain and the assets and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
around these use cases. And the other one was around like product sales enablement. And I was like, oh, I'd rather do the product domain. And they they offered me
Hmm.
the job. I was like, you're doing the sales enablement one if you want this. So it's like,
That's so funny.
all right,
Okay.
I'll do that.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a couple things that, one, I think like the generalist product marketer thing can be really good in teaching you how to do a lot of things really quickly because you can't really specialize and
Sure.
you're having to balance a lot of plates at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
that niche focus lets you get really good at something in particular and helps
Hmm.
you articulate things to people in a way that is persuasive to them ultimately. And that's a
Yep.
really important part, I think, to both of these jobs, product management and product marketing. Focusing on like sales enablement as an example, like you get really good at thinking through like, what types of content do I need to deliver from an enablement perspective on what types of like releases, or like how granular do we get on this one technical component and enabling
Hmm.
folks on that, and like what are the different like levels, like 101, 201, 301 that we want to deliver content to for these different types of sales roles and that sort of thing. And getting to the point where you like have opinions on those things and develop kind of like your philosophy and doctrine for your approach to that, I think
Yep.
really helps you become persuasive. If you were then to jump back into a generalist role, just know what you're going into. If you're thinking about like one role that seems like it's more one or the other, is like, what do you want to get out of it, and then what do you think you can take from that into your next role after?
One of my friends told me that his mentor had said, every place you are, your job is to learn something. And so that idea of like, oh, I can learn what that is. You will always get education from your employer, 100%. He's like, you get education first, you get money. That was like his whole lesson. That was great.
So last question, then we'll move on to lessons learned. Which environment, large or small, sort of do you get more energy from? Do you enjoy working in more?
Small.
Small.
Small. Yeah. I said that really quickly. I do love the creative mess of, hey, we're building something new, we're getting something there. What is this going to be? But just that idea of like, once all the chaos is kind of settled, then I get bored. And I'm like, okay, I want to go do something
I
else.
think
So
people that meet you immediately think messy. All right, lessons learned, John. What's yours this week?
the lesson learned is not, I mean, maybe the meta lesson is that I'm getting old, but I heard the phrase, let them cook. Do you know that? I mean, it is a part of your name.
Yeah, that's where it came from. My name. Yep.
Do you know this phrase? I think it's a Gen A phrase.
Yeah,
Alpha.
I do know the phrase. It's been around for a little while, John. You're coming to it a little late, but yeah.
I am coming around to this late. That's generally me anyways. I'm a late adopter on a lot of things more and more as I'm getting older. But I did learn about let them cook, and I'm gonna use that as much as I can.
I'm sure your kids will love hearing you say it.
I did ask them. I was like,
Yeah.
hey, what do you guys say this? And it's funny that you're like, this is old, because they're like, I think we did last year.
Yeah, I mean, my elementary schooler knows that phrase, and elementary schoolers, I feel like, come to things later than like the high schoolers and middle schoolers. Probably, like,
Yeah.
they're probably on like the slower part of that curve. Hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm glad that we're friends, because then you can teach me the things. Thanks for not sharing that with me ahead of time.
I'm supposed to have like a running list of phrases I don't think you've heard and keeping
Yeah.
me up to speed. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm not. I mean, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Now
for
that
you, John.
Google Reader doesn't exist and RSS feeds are dead, you need to be my real life RSS
Come on,
feed.
John. My lesson learned is Napster is still a thing. So they popped up
really?
in the news. There's a class action lawsuit related to this. All relates to like all the kind of craziness around what streaming services pay to the artists themselves, and so there was a lawsuit
right.
filed. This is related to they actually the company was Rhapsody. They rebranded as Napster, and so they got sued. They settled this case. The judge now wants to like throw out the settlement because the settlement was going to pay the lawyers. They were going to pay the songwriters 30 times less than the lawyers, and so the judge was like, "You can't do it. That's too
That's actually hilarious.
too much. That's egregious."
Good
So,
for
anyways,
the judge too.
good for the judge. But I just like had no idea Napster was still around. That's kind of wild, right? That like you would rebrand as Napster like is also kind of wild.
Yeah. Right, because Rhapsody bought Napster in 2000.
Way back, I think.
Whenever.
Well,
that
I think
was.
it might have gotten bought a couple times. I feel like.
That's funny.
We have an email address if you have feedback or questions about this episode. We'd love to hear them. We might talk about some of these topics that you mailed to us. So getintomarketpod@gmail.com. You can find our YouTube channel at getintomarketpod, I think is the YouTube channel name. Nailed that one. And then new episodes every Tuesday. So we'll see
Every
you again next
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah. Good to see you, Nate. Have a good week, bud.
Bye, John.
Bye.